Hi, my name is Dan. I'm a consultant at Chariot. And this talk was inspired by the fact that sometimes I mentor more junior people than me, and they ask me technology questions of like what they should learn, what they should go into. And I mean, you always have to use your brain whenever you're making these decisions about like what you should go into, but this is one lens to look at it, and I thought it was a fun one to do. So, technologies that last. That's me. So the Lindy effect. I got this out of a book called Anti-Fragile. And basically the idea is that if a book has been in print for 40 years, I can expect it to be in print for another 40 years. But the main difference between biological things, right, and things that are non-biological, like books, right, that their lifetime is, this is, postulated, that their lifetime is proportional to, like their future lifetime is proportional to their past lifetime, right? So unlike humans, if a book like Don Quixote has been around for hundreds of years, right, you should expect it to be around for hundreds of more years, right? So if there's humanity, there's going to be, Beethoven's symphony is probably going to be around forever. So the older something is, the more likely it is to be completely immortal. So I thought, hey, maybe this applies to tech, right? And so I developed my own little Lindy effect, right? And basically, okay, the future lifetime of technology, maybe it's proportional to half of its existing lifetime, right? And maybe that would be an interesting lens to use to inform like what you should learn in the future and where you want to invest your time if you're just starting out. So for instance, SQL, right? SQL's been around for like 40 years now, roughly. So if you divide that by 2, right, you can reasonably expect SQL to be around for the next 20 years, right? So if you're making a decision of what should I learn like an ORM or SQL, and the ORM has been around for a year, maybe you should learn SQL, right? It's probably a better way to invest your time because that's going to be around, right? At least based on this, right? And obviously, right, there's SQLite, right? There's a bunch of products, like SQL is basically runs everything. SQLite is everywhere. MariaDB, right, MySQL. WordPress, which runs SQL, right? MariaDB runs like 40% of the web, etc., right? Postgres, Oracle, blah, blah, blah. SQL is everywhere. All right, Unix, right? So if you want to master an operating system, maybe, Unix, Linux, whatever, master something that's even older, right? Maybe master something that's 50 years old. Because divide the current lifetime by half, right? So 25 years, right? You definitely, I definitely expect Linux and Unix clones to be around for the next 25 years. So basically you'll probably retire and Linux is still going to be a thing, right? So it's a good time investment. Right, like basically everything is becoming Linux, including like Windows should be on here too, because they're slowly becoming Unix as well. Right, like every supercomputer uses Linux, literally all of them, all the top 500, etc. iOS is basically Unix now, Android, right, like everything is Unix. All right, version control. So version controls, I also expect to be around for a very long time because that's also really old. So relatively speaking to tech, right, much older than Angular. So I expect version control to outlive Angular. Right, so like Git, right, that's everywhere, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of Git. All right, programming languages. The one near and dear to my heart, Lisp. Right? It's been around forever. I'm hoping it'll be immortal, but who knows? But hey, I expect it to be around for the next 35 years, let's say, at least, in some form or another, right? So invented all this stuff, right? REPL, recursion, garbage collection. Basically, most of this was either invented in Lisp or popularized by it. So this is the Lisp I love the most at the moment. Closure. So I recommend you guys look into it. Also invented some or popularized some cool things. Number one being persistent data structures. All right, then there's Racket, right? Also a good Lisp. All right, now C, right? So do you want to learn a hot new language, or or C, which is again old, and I expect it to be around for the rest of my career, in one form or another. And literally everything is written in it. Once you drill down far enough, right? Everything, from medical devices to games to whatever, your car, everything's running C, including SQLite, right? Like everything is C. Java is another one, right? You may love it, you may hate it, but it's been around for a while. It's going to be around for at least half as long as it's been around, which is also a long time, right? And that's also basically used by a bunch of Fortune 500 companies for many different things. JavaScript, right? So do you want to learn that new language that's a JavaScript derivative, or that new hot JavaScript framework, or just learn JavaScript? What do you think a better time investment is using the Lindy effect, right? What's going to live longer? If you don't want to waste your time learning something that went obsolete, I recommend learning JavaScript. Learn that first before learning any other JavaScript derivative, like TypeScript or whatever. Right? It's everywhere. Message brokers, right? So this is another one that's been around for a while, almost 40 years. So I would expect message brokers to also exist for at least another 20 until somebody creates something else. So right, there's RabbitMQ, right? Lots of features. There's Kafka, etc. So I think that's it. It's the end. So I think it's a useful way. It's not the only way of evaluating technology, but I think it's a useful way to think about it. Obviously, other ways are popularity, right, support, etc., how much fun you're having with it, but I think this is an interesting way of thinking about things.